Welcome to Design Week Philippines 2022, Design for All. My name is AdG Javier, Principal Architect at Javier Design Studio, Manila, and your host and moderator for today. Carrying the theme Design for All, the 11th year of Design Week aims to continue the Design Center's decades-long push to broaden access to design as a creative and a business solution, as a wellspring of inspiration and innovation, and of course, as a profession. This weekend, we heard leading design voices as they navigated their creative careers. We welcomed design students and mentors to the first Design Week Philippines Portfolio Reviews. And yesterday, we learned about the artful creative print medium of Rizo. Before we begin, the Design Center and Design Week Philippines would like to thank the Department of Trade and Industry, our co-presenters, Tourism Promotions Board, First United Building, Hub Make Lab, our program partners, our design mentors, our design partner, our live stream partner, our media partners, and our government partner. And now, to get things started, let's hear a message from the Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry, Secretary Alfredo E. Pascual.
Design Center of the Philippines Executive Director Rhea, Matute, esteemed guests and partners from government and the private sector, a pleasant morning to you all. I'm glad to be here today to celebrate with you and commence the 11th year of Design Week Philippines. For over a decade, Design Week Philippines has stayed true to its commitment to championing Filipinos' deeply rooted passion for creating and expressing their identity. This event has celebrated design as one of the Philippine creative economy's significant, rich, and diverse pillars. With the reintroduction of face-to-face sessions this year, we expect a more vibrant Design Week Philippines in the historic street of Escolta, the early 20th century Manila premier commercial and business district, and today, a thriving hub for contemporary Filipino design and creativity. As we navigate the fourth industrial revolution in an ever-evolving world, design is being recognized for its potential as an adaptive and impactful solution to realize innovation, to equip domains of the creative industries in responding to the challenges of our times, and ultimately create jobs and contribute to our economy. We see this all over the world. The Danish government, for example, has incorporated design into its political agenda since 1997, promoting the value of design, enhancing interactions between designers and businesses, and integrating design into public sector services. In the Asia-Pacific region, countries like India, China, South Korea have integrated design into their education curriculum to cultivate aptitude in design thinking among the youth. In Singapore, design is integral in turning the country into a livable city. These nations demonstrate design's inherent transformative power to make life better for the community. The Philippine government recognizes the value of design. The Philippine Creative Industries Act is among the milestones in our endeavor to support and accelerate our creative industries, which include design. Design Week Philippines casts a bright light on the ability of design to enable the government to propel science, technology, and innovation as a strategy. Design helps prepare the country for a smarter and more digitally progressive future. It further nurtures growth among businesses such as MSMEs so that they can upgrade, upscale, and contribute to a more robust economy. Through the theme, Design for All, Design Week Philippines explores the incredible power of design in institutionalizing positive changes that will benefit not just a few select, but everyone. Design Week Philippines has segments in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. It acknowledges diverse forms of Filipino design and creativity, from indigenous design to design in the streets of the country's urban centers, to the innovation labs emerging in our industrial and academic hotspots. In this sense, design is and can be for all. Hindi lang isa ang uunlad, kundi lahat. This is the vision that Design Week Philippines 2022 carries through its series of talks, workshop, tours, and community experiences for participants. Congratulations to the Design Center of the Philippines and all its partners in organizing this event. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Welcome to Design Week Philippines 2022.
Thank you, Secretary Alfredo Pascual. To our audience, don't forget to tag us in your posts and stories with the hashtag Design Week Philippines 2022 and Design for All. It is day 3 of the festival, where we'll be featuring 2 roundtables zeroing in on design in the new normal. Now, we track the evolution of Philippine design in the last year and how Philippine designers are navigating the many changes we've undergone in such a short span of time. It is my pleasure to be moderating this roundtable, the State of Philippine Design 2022 in review, at Espacio Creativo here at the First United Building in Escolta. Joining me today are 4 of the very best in their field. Ms. Amina Alunan of SOFA Design Institute, Architect Royal Pineda of Royal Pineda Plus, Ms. Abby Mapua of Ashoka Philippines and Kind Mind, and Ms. Rhea Matute, the Executive Director of the DTI Design Center of the Philippines. Thank you for joining us today, Amina, Royal, Abby, and Rhea. Let's get into it. So you represent very well, I might add, different fields in the fields of design. Why do you design, and what keeps you going years on? Let me start with Amina.
Okay, so why do I design? I think for me, design is something that has always been very personal. That's how it started. It really started, I think, just like most of us creatives, everything starts from passion, from interest, from the heart. And I've always been a type of person, without even knowing it, that I was always led by my heart in everything I did. And it led me to the world of design without really, from a young age, without even really understanding what design was all about. And as I started through fashion, and of course that still is where I operate at the moment, but of course it has expanded towards the rest of the design world through education. But as a designer myself, as a practitioner myself, why do I continue to design? For me, it really is, it is not, at first, maybe as a young designer, you think about it as fun, as something that is play. But as you go deeper into the craft, you realize that design is transformative, that design can influence. You see that, how with the pieces that you create, that somehow you are, I guess, influencing others with, in a subtle way. And you are also slowly prompting them, maybe nudging them towards making certain decisions, also assisting them in finding also their own truth. I think many people see design as something that is like, a technical skill. But for me personally, design for me is something, it is very personal. It is about purpose. It is for me about my personal purpose as a human. It's not for me just a career. I cannot imagine doing something else apart from designing, because I really feel it's a way to touch and communicate with humanity. And it's also a way for me to communicate certain values, certain beliefs and philosophies. And I'm not saying that everyone has to accept these proposals that I have, but perhaps it will also, help people discover their own paths or discover their own beliefs, their own values. For me, it really is a proposal of what life could be like, what a lifestyle, what values, what standards one could have.
You mentioned your journey with design did start as an intuitive experience, right? As an intuitive exercise, and eventually you discovered that design is an agent of transformation, if I understood you correctly. Does this also go well, you think, for designers who would have started with the journey as a learning experience, not as an intuitive experience? Would it be the same?
I think so, because I think, you could start, depending on who you are, you could start designing from a very practical point of view, knowing there is this real world solution, and you're more logical with it. But as you go through that, you also start creating and forming your own points of view towards a certain topic. That's right. And so eventually, I don't think you can separate from a designer, a point of view. You cannot separate from the designer their own philosophies and their outlook on life.
That's right. Guys, if you're wondering why I am suddenly in the middle, this is not because of climate change. No, I will have more facility in talking to our guests if I'm in the middle. So Miss Abby Mapua was kindly obliged to switch places with me. But anyway, taking it from what Amina has said about her journey in design, going to Rhea, being the head of the design center of the Philippines, and taking it, because that struck me, that the agency of transformation. Of course, I know you have design activities, but more on the administrative and operation side, on the policy side as well. How does that dimension of transformation, design and transformation, work with the DTI as far as you as a designer is concerned? And what keeps you moving towards that?
That's a very loaded question, and we can do it the whole day. I did not set out to, like, on this journey, like from the, like, I woke up one day, I wanted to be a designer and go into design center. I actually had I had an undergraduate in business and marketing, which I felt, like throughout my, I guess, self-discovery, I thought was something also still very creative, very idea-driven, that marketing side and understanding, like consumers, markets, and all that. But I grew up with a grandfather who is a civil engineer, and he took us to his projects on weekends before our Saturday lunches with him. And so, like, I saw the world, like with buildings in progress, roads in progress, dams in progress. And where we lived in Malabon, it was where the motor pool was. So, like, we had cranes in our backyard. We built hollow blocks while we were on weekends. So it was all about creating things, building, and like imagining stuff. And we had all the scrap from the construction to build our own tree houses, to build our own playgrounds. So that was basically, like, but I denied it. I mean, like, like it felt kind of cliche that, okay, like, like with my background, you'd go into design, but eventually it caught up with me. And then, again, it's really just a journey. And when I thought of going into design in the Philippines, my lighthouse was really about Manila Fame.
That's right.
And that's where all the creativity of the Philippines really shone in one place, and it's always been a source of inspiration. So, like, I thought, why don't I try getting into the organization that did Manila Fame to understand the industry in the Philippines? And then as I uncovered more and more the industry, or like, like back then I felt that the design infrastructure wasn't quite the same as it was in New York in the Philippines. I don't know why I would expect that it would be the same. But I mean, yeah, and that's where I, like, I felt, okay, like maybe my path is really with government and helping create that design infrastructure where designers can thrive, can make a living out of designing. And that basically led me to my first project was the development of Movement 8. And
Movement 8.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that whole journey just kind of, like you go with it. Decades after, you're still on it. I mean, like now I'm with Design Center, but I think it's still the same design journey.
That's right.
Like that what I've started.
You've proposed a very not really unpopular, but an unlikely career path for a creatives professional such as you. You did say you came from a background that is not traditionally that has gotten an erudition in design, like an architect would or a fashion designer, but you eventually ended up in a very empowered place of influence, because government is designing the structure of influence and transformation. What is your take on that dimension of design, that very non-traditional, non-creating, but it's really more on the power of influencing designers at that?
Government is a very powerful sector in enabling design. I also come from an educational background where, like, I guess the influence of Ateneo and the theology of liberation and, like about responsibility.
Yes.
At one point, I understood that I am able to make more of an impact when I'm in government rather than just being in private sector. And again, not everyone is willing to understand government sector and how it works and how can you change from within. But I like that challenge. Again, like the higher the complexity and the difficulty, I like that. I mean, I like that. I like the challenge. Yeah, masochist.
Yeah,
I guess. And
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
and basically that's and I'm still at it.
Yeah, Tom Main, an architect, did say that in its difficulty, it's worth pursuing. Yeah. Well, Abby, of course, we've worked together on a lot of projects over the years, and I know that this influence making, and in fact, our jargon is impact making through design is this vein that runs the whole thread that runs through your design efforts. Would you tell us about that journey?
I think I am very similar to Rhea in terms of I never thought I'd be a designer. Actually, perhaps in the room, I'm a different kind of designer. So I consider myself as a social designer, and my personal manifesto in life is we have the power to shape the future. So with that statement, I think I'm really a problem solver. So being a problem solver, I realized problem solving is really about design. So I realized that each person actually has the agency to shape present and future. And this one really struck me hard as a person, because I see a lot of Filipinos being reactionary to a lot of things when we could actually be very proactive. I also take inspiration from what Dostoevsky talked about, beauty will save the world. And I say, in the Philippines, it seems like beauty is something that's not accessible. And I realize a tool or a pathway towards creating what is beautiful could actually be design. And design could be accessible to everyone. I mean, if it could be accessible to me, who's somebody who's not from a design, aesthetic design field, I think everyone can. So everyone could be empowered with the practice of designing so that they could actually shape their present and their future conditions. So, yep, that's what design is for me.
You mentioned that topic on beauty. Academically, that's a black hole of a topic. But my curious question would be, do you think this aspect or concept or holy grail of beauty is very elusive to the Filipino? And why, if you agree, do you think it is elusive?
This is an interesting conversation. I don't think it is elusive, because really beauty is very subjective. So then everyone could have access to it, right?
Yes.
It is a very personal thing. This could be very beautiful to me and not to you, so I could actually achieve this one. But the point is, design could get us there. So I don't think it is elusive, and I think it could be very empowering.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Design could get us there. I only posited that thought in the context of a conversation that we have been used to comparing ourselves, our built environments, our objects to objects and places of other countries, and which, I mean, we can develop that topic in a while. But I wanted to touch on that aspect of beauty because that's what I want Royal to talk about as far as his context of his design journey is concerned. We are both architects, and we are in the business of making beautiful places, allegedly. That's how we are supposed to be. Tell us about your design journey and how you finally ended up in this advocate for this Filipino design sensibility.
Well, like you, I never really thought that I'd be designing or I'd be an architect. But I just love doing things, sketching things, and I always like imagining a version of what I think is better. So when I was grade 2, I was already sketching. And whenever I see a car, I sketch a car, but I never copied it. I always make a version of it. Like, I think of, maybe this is better if it's like this. Then we also have this, of course, it's a copy of Mona Lisa in our small library. And I even sketched Mona Lisa, but I put bangs. Because I wanted, I felt it was better. Okay. Yeah. So
did you keep that design?
Well, it's gone. It was, of course, that was a long time ago. But I think it was the beginning of a realization also of looking back. I was designing. I was dreaming of betterment. And that's what I'm doing now. Design for me is actually sharing a philosophy. It's sharing a dream. And it's also, for me, the roadmap to the modern Philippines. Because I believe, and this is again what you also partly said, I believe that the Filipinos can all live in luxury by design. That's why I even coined practical luxury.
Yes.
And why do I say modern Philippines? Because I believe that there should be a culture that all of us creatives should also create. And not just to inherit all these bad cultures that we ingrained already, mañana habit and all this, Filipinos, you're always late, I think the new culture that I'm so eager to share is this culture of betterment. Wherein, imagine a betterment, an inch of betterment today can be a kilometer tomorrow. But this really resonates. A Filipino that's evolving. A Filipino that's never gonna be status quo. But again, we will always seek for something rooted because I'm also a naturalist. So my inspiration is always nature.
Yes.
So I do not somehow limit myself with the inspiration of 500 years. And that's why you were saying, there were forms that we compare because we think that it's better if it's from Italy, or from France, or from Japan. But if we understand that humanity itself is inspired by the real source of creativity, which is nature, then anything that you create becomes authentic.
Is this still a quest for you? Speaking at the present, you say this agenda of societal betterment, better Filipino. Is this still a quest, or have you discovered it already? Or are you in the process of discovering it?
I discovered it, and it's a continuous process. It's never going to end. Modern Philippines and the modern Filipino sensibility is infinite. Because what's modern to us today will never be the same as the modern of the Filipinos of 50 years from now. The modernity will always be moving. And that is
So it's a continuum.
That's the exciting part. You see, AJ, it's like we always have a room to improve.
Yeah, I like your optimism. I could use a little bit of that. No, I think what is very common in all your answers is this agency of change. The ending of this change you express particular variants of it, ranging from transformation, influence, a better life, and impact to society. I think that's a very good platform to talk about. When we speak about where Philippine design right now is, where it is postured. But given all these within your respective realms of object making, place making, experience, and even beyond it, how would you describe design to say a design student or someone who is just beginning to learn the craft? Let me start with you, Rhea.
I'm talking now as a design center, and we've been on this journey as well as trying to define it. Is it really something definitive, or is it really more of the values?
Yes.
With the work together with the Design Advisory Council is we basically define design as malasakit, which is a Filipino value of compassion. And to a certain extent, even how, I guess, Amina, Abby, and Royal have spoken about their journey. And it is, the concept of malasakit is human-centered, right? I mean, or living-centered. I mean, so it's not just, about humanity, but it's about everything that surrounds us. And when you think of design from the point of view of Malasakit, it's also action. So it's something that you want to, problem solving, future building, future proofing. So it's not about just the here and now, but it's really, again, like when we also define it, it's like, like it's a quadruple bottom line. So it's people, planet, purpose, and prosperity. Not profit, but it's really prosperity, because again, it's the we. It's not, just a, it's less of an ego, but it's really about community building and nation building, which I think is definitely very important, like from a Philippine experience and Philippine historical point of view.
You mentioned something very, very important where I want to bring the discussion and expand from. As far as Philippine design, Philippine architecture, objects are concerned. And this is the debate between is Filipino or Philippine design extrinsic or intrinsic in nature. The character, the identity, that has been a long-standing debate in all design schools. You did say the design center has gone into this advocacy of malasakit. It is it's a very intrinsic value of design, of identity. Are you essentially of that persuasion that the state of Philippine design should be going into that intrinsic character? I frame the question in this discovery of identity, where we will now frame this state of design. Do we go for a quest of design as a distinctive character of a particular look? When you look at it, that's Filipino, those are Filipino forms, Filipino materials. Or is this really the business of talking about the intrinsic values of malasakit, the intuitive feeling that it exudes or it extracts from you? What is your position on that?
The way I view design, it's less about form, but it's really about values, the DNA, right? And even like with humans, you have DNA, but it evolves as depending on situation. But there's a core value that gives it the soul, that gives it the spirit, and depending on the context, how that value interacts with the time is still, for me, a Filipino character, a Filipino value of what design is. And I think just the generational knowledge that is in our DNA gives us a how we interact with the world. We have that memory as a people in the tropics, as the people that deal with, like typhoon, water, so it's just built in. And so I feel that if we just embrace that rather than just a strict form that this is how Filipino design should look, I think it does a disservice to our ancestors as well as to the future generations.
Amina, you are in the business of object making. You're into fashion and accessories, and also in education, in design education. Is this the same for you? This debate between the intrinsic and extrinsic value of Philippine design? Where do you want to bring Philippine design? Do you agree with what Rhea said?
Well, for me, it's not even a debate because for me, design is really intangible first. Design for me, it's the most fascinating thing because I think design is one concept or one discipline that touches everything. It starts from for me, the heart.
Yes.
It starts from the soul. It starts from a sense of self-discovery, self-awareness. So at that point, you're really intrinsic. It's just all about who am I? Where did I come from? What do I want to say? And from there, it's how you can bridge your inner self with the community, with the society, with your customer, with the country, with the world. So it's really like, how can you build that bridge between you and the outside world? And it happens through what you create, and for me, like, design it's intellectual, it's spiritual, emotional, practical. It's your soul, your heart, your hands. It's your entire body.
That's right.
And that's why I find it so fascinating, because you can't escape design. No matter how you try, no matter how you even think that, oh no, designing is just, they made it pretty. They made something look beautiful. Their job is done as a designer. And it's, like I said earlier, it's so amazing because design can be so sly that you don't even know that it has influenced you. You don't even know that it has nudged you towards certain directions.
Yes, that's correct.
And into creating a certain output, you know, whether it is a house, a chair, a car, you know, a dress, you know, you take all of your intellect, your research, your exposure, your experience. I agree that we should not put the Filipino design language in a box.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's impossible to put it in a box because it will evolve. Just the past 2 years, that what all of us lived in a box,
yes.
You know, that totally has changed how we think, how we design, how we live, and just that is already, you know, in a way, everyone, different parts of the world, you know, they had their own experiences of this lockdown, you know, and they had their own interpretations of what they needed to design to make the future better. We have probably, from, like Rhea was saying, our experiences in the Philippines, not just geographically, but also culturally, even religious, government policy. Those have changed all of us. So for me, like I said, for me, design it's inward, but it's also outward. Like you can't separate it.
Yes. So would you say this could be our unique selling proposition or our competitive advantage vis-a-vis other designers, the Filipino designer whose product is a Filipino design, this intangible value? I
think that what we really have to commit to is really going through self-discovery and understanding. And it's only when you look inward, truly look inward, that you can come up with something that is unique, that you can create your own design language. Because if you're always looking outward, you're just always creating a version of something else that's been done. And so it you know, like Royal said, for me, I'm such a dreamer, and all our students, I always urge them, you have to dream, never stop dreaming. Try to be, for me, designers are also inventors. You have to think of the future, think of beyond what is there. You have to challenge everything that is there already, and you can't do that without first having self-awareness. So as Filipinos, we have to look inwards. Each and every practicing designer, it is our role to look inwards.
That's
and
right.
You know, and not take references yet from the outside world.
Yes, exactly. I would like to take it up from there. This very introspective appreciation of the design activity or the design exercise. So it's the examination, right? Like the examination of you as a person, as a designer, as an individual, as a citizen of this country. In that regard, would you say, Royal, that relative to the built environment, architecture, urban planning, would the rigor of creating distinctively charactered or culturally distinctive design is irrelevant already? Because that reinforces the position of Rhea and Amina, the reinforcement of the intangible, the intrinsic, the essential value, the plurality of expression, which I did recall you giving a position on that as well. So what is your take on that? Is the age of distinctive design, like Japanese design, Egyptian design, Chinese design, once you see it, you know it's Japanese. Is that over?
As I've said, I believe in evolution. That's why I said modernity is infinite. It will never end. And for me, the key is truthfulness. And when you approach a design issue, a problem, a negativity, and then you start to transform it into something positive with design, and it's truthful, you'll just be surprised that you step away from it and you start to see an authentic architecture.
That's right.
Or design or an object. And suddenly, that becomes a manifestation of what we call Filipino. And the future Filipinos will start to read that authentic product of today as the Philippine architecture of our time. And it's the same thing as what we're doing when you talk about Japanese architecture of its time, because it was done during that time. My issue is, I cannot keep repeating what I've seen before.
Yes.
Because there's no betterment. It's a shame that my ancestors will tell me, Royal, you're an architect. I'm not even an architect when I did Bahay Kubo. And here you are, you studied architecture, and you're still repeating Bahay Kubo. That, for me, is mortal sin. Creativity is design.
He opened the black hole, ladies and gentlemen.
And design
I did not open it.
is creativity. That is where I'm going. And that is, for me, freedom. To free ourselves from the dictatorship of the mind and the influence of colonial mentality. That's why you refer.
Very dangerous
No,
areas
I'm
to talk
telling-
about.
That's why I'm telling everyone, you refer to nature, and I believe that you will be authentic.
Yes.
Because there is nothing as authentic as the rivers of the Philippines, and the oceans, and the mountains, and the trees. Do you think Japan has Pinatubo? Do you think Italy has Pinatubo? No, Pinatubo is just in the Philippines. So automatically, it is authentic. And you can look anybody in the eye and say, that's modern Filipino architecture and design.
But just to add to that, I mean, I do think it's valuable for a certain body to collect all of that work and try to define, but like he said, for a certain time, for the next generation, but not for the goal to put it in a box and say,
That's right.
and say what you did is not under the rules of Filipino design. That's not the intent.
Yeah, because I bring that up since we're both all of us are all educators at one point. It is very traditional in design school that these boxes should exist. The Bahay Kubo should be there, the Banig, the Suliya. That's why I wanted to get your opinion, because that really goes into the philosophical value of the truth and authenticity. I bring this topic to you because you deal with community, you deal with organizations, human dynamics of everything as a structure, the human structure of it all, and the role of design there. How do you manage eliciting the truth or the authentic sentiment of a particular human structure in your
Right.
experience?
So for me, I go back to what I said earlier. For me, design is problem solving, right? So you take what is unfavorable, problematic, damaging, and perhaps transform that into something that is beautiful, that is valuable. So that being said, you have to draw from what is happening outside. And then, so I want to lose the polarity between what extrinsic and intrinsic. So I think it is both, and the beauty is in having both. And that's where you draw the authenticity. So you take from what's happening around you, and you reflect on it, and what can I do? How could I make things better? But of course, you cannot say, also pointing out to what Rhea said about being human-centered, right? You cannot just design out of what is intrinsically good for you, but you have to understand what others are going through when you actually design, because most of the time, it is really just not about you, but affecting a wider audience. So.
In that respect, when you said it is really not most of the time not about you as a designer, Is it even about you at all if you're a designer?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be, how do you say this one? Not truthful. If I say I don't bring myself into the design, we always bring ourselves. And there's no such thing as, I'm completely unbiased. You will always bring your own biases, but as a designer, as we keep practicing, we start losing our biases, but we actually be more compassionate, be more empathetic of other people. And I think that's the beauty of the practice.
I agree.
It actually makes you a better person, honestly.
That process of collaboration.
Yeah, I think the whole process of designing is actually a retreat. For me, it's like being in a retreat for life, right? So
we're 3 months away from truly wrapping up 2022. But I think we're all in agreement when I say what a year this has been. It really seems like the velocity of change just keeps on picking up year after year since the new decade started. I've been meaning to ask what you would consider to be Philippine design's most definitive moment in 2022. So far, that is, Amina.
For me, it's the passing of the Creative Industries Bill, because for the first time, it's like the creative industries are being recognized. And it's legitimizing us, and it's giving us a platform and a voice to really bring the industry to the next step. Bringing it to the rest of the world, and really racing all of us in the creative industries. Which in the past we've all been under the radar. We've all been sort of like seen as hobbyists, and people just having fun. But now, it's really empowering the creative industries as well.
That's right. Yeah, I would agree. This cluster of bills would really be a game changer for all the participants of this creative industry, from the smallest items of design to the cities of our country. How about you, Abby? What would you consider to be the most distinguishing?
So I guess, maybe can I mention 3, just briefly. I think the pandemic, we'll always talk about the silver lining. I'm always hopeful. I think the pandemic really produced creativity. So I think, the pandemic has been problematic in almost all sense of life, aspects of life, and it produced creativity in Filipinos. So, people coming up with their own brands, people creating their own content online as well, whether as a person or it's for an enterprise. And I think it's beautiful. But on the flip side also, we've seen a proliferation of people creating content that's also polarizing, and it also misinformation. So there's that also. Another thing that I feel like is really strong in the past 2 years, not just in 2022, I want to make mention of one mentee of ours, AJ actually, Bianca Carage.
Yeah.
So Bianca Carage is a graduate of BNIL who studied social design in Amsterdam, and she actually created this game. It's called Bump Galaxy, and I feel like I've always told my students, like, I dream of the day when Filipinos will actually be the one shaping the direction of design rather than just following it. And I think I'm seeing it in my lifetime with the work of the likes of Bianca Carage, who created this gaming platform for mental wellness. So check it out. So that's the second one. Perhaps the third one is, I would like to say that this is hopeful because it's a personal project of mine, to actually work with public government, in terms of shaping how public services are designed. So we work with civic servants, and we work with them in terms of championing how could we make the design of public service to be more inclusive, to be more just, to be more humane, to bring dignity back to the Filipinos. Because if we think about access of public services, it's always like, we line up in the heat, in the rain, right? Or we're asked to come back, how many times? And we really lose our dignity. And when we travel, we know that it is not like that, right? So I'm just so happy that we get to work with government in terms of doing this. So yeah, I think, no, that's the second one. Is that the second one? That's the third one. So maybe the fourth one is like, I feel like also Filipino design and creativity is going back to what is regenerative. And I think this is something that Royal will agree on as well. Like, people are looking back at the roots of what is natural, what is actually sustainable, And with the work of Design Center Philippines, I know that is coming around in terms of this whole concept of circular economy, and I feel like that is something that will continue to grow, and I'm hopeful about.
Rhea, what for you defined Philippine design in 2022?
I guess the opening, like what I mean. Actually, Abby opened it up, right? For me, I mean, not just because it's an advocacy of Design Center, but I mean, really like circular design, cradle to cradle, that sensitivity to design, not just like for the self, but it's really about the impact of what we design or how we design. So it's about process as well as the finished object, system, or what have you. So for me, like 2022, somehow there is that the audience is ready to have that conversation. I guess coming from the pandemic, I mean, then it's not just a tagline, or it's not about circular washing of the concept, but there is that openness to understand what really is circular design, and to a certain extent generative. We like to think that like it's we've contributed to that, and through the projects that we do with our agricultural waste program has done that. And I like the fact that once you just talk about it in the public space, then there are so many people that come up and want to support it, or like have been thinking about it. For me, I think that's affirming, but at the same time, it's very empowering. So the bill definitely, I mean, like it really brought some kind of formalization, that creativity is not something that you do as a side hustle, right? Somehow it's starting to gain traction, and with the bill, we're very optimistic about that being really something kind of like a more developmental and economic policy that will be adopted by the Philippine government and the society as a whole.
Just like suddenly everyone is talking about or is interested in to talk about the good design that they deserve. In the public sphere, it's conversation, good design for cities, good systems, beautiful things, memorable events. Is this new is this discovery brought about by the pandemic, you think, or is this just really time? It was ripe for the Filipino to talk about it. Let's talk about it. I deserve good design.
I guess we're late bloomers.
Yeah.
I think it's really more of that, because we're very nice people. I mean, like like we. Or we adapt to the situations. I mean, like like we have the saying that I mean, like when the blanket is short, you curl up to make it fit, right? So and somehow that, I mean, that becomes also who we are. But to a certain extent, like I guess we reach a certain like point where like we know we want better, and we gotta do better.
That's good, right? That's really good.
And exactly. And and it might not have been the right time before because maybe society was not ready for it. But you see this groundswell of openness for change. And that for me is that sign, is that door opening or that window opening.
Royal, what was the defining moment of Philippine design for 2022 for you?
Well, I'll start not with the 2022, but I'd rather start 2019.
But don't start too far back. Huh?
Okay, not 65,000 years ago. But 2019.
All right.
Okay, 2019 was like for me, and I just want to share this because it's personal. I mean, it's a project. And when we hosted the Southeast Asian Games, we all thought it was an impossible project because the foreign consultants were saying, it will take 3 years to be able to design and finish it. We Filipinos took the challenge and we said, let's do it then. And we're only given 2 years. We're able to finish it in 18 months. And the Southeast Asian Games project was the defining road that we can do it. in 18 months. The Filipinos deserve something better. And it is not an excuse that we are not a first world. We don't need to be first world to live in luxury. We can all live in luxury by design. And then, there's 2020, which is Bangkota. This time, let's present the modern Filipino architecture and design and the sensibility to the world. And I think that, for me, is a major accomplishment to reach 3.5 billion estimated digital link. That's almost what? 1/4 of the population of the world. I think that is major in terms of reaching and presenting, and I would say manifesting the modernity of the Filipinos. That, for me, is the major. Yeah.
As we go into our closing and final word, I would like you to take off from there and do make a manifestation. Where are we? What is the state of Philippine design, and what are you looking forward to?
Well, I believe that the Philippines and the design, what we're doing will be more clear, distinct, legible, no? And you can read it in so many ways. But I think what really becomes parang very, very, I would say, obvious is the conviction and the dignity and the pride. Not because of ego, but it's because of the sureness that you are Filipino, and you are ready to share and give something to the world. But you start within us. We start with our fellow Filipinos. That when we see, look at them, they're queuing, they need a proper terminal. Let's think of that. Let's make negativity a positivity. You can never improve something if you don't see it. See the bad things.
I think for designers, that's the lens by which we see the world. We see how it works, and we see when it doesn't work.
You know what I call it? I call it the fuel. That's the fuel, the fire that makes us all creative.
I work harder when there's a challenge or like a problem in front of me. When I'm not challenged, I'm like and relaxed. Like it doesn't come out. So yeah.
So it's like, holding pain, sorrow, and joy together in the same space. Okay, we're becoming philosophical.
Yeah, Abby, what excites you? What do you look forward to? And
this excites me.
Where is Philippine design?
This one excites me. This conversation excites me a lot because my field is in social design, in experience design. It's really a combination of objects, of places, of images, right? And I feel like agreeing with Royal that it's not about competition, but actually it's about complementation and collaborative creation. So I feel like for me, I'm hopeful about us working together, more designers working together so that you could create sharper design, a sharper image, a clearer articulation of what is Filipino design and how could Filipinos solve their problems. So I'm hopeful about that. I'm also hopeful about, mainstreaming design. I mean, you talk about what happened in March, right? And you talk about, how we are actually declaring that this is Filipino design. But I wish that knowledge, that information could transcend the masses as well. We need to mainstream this information. We need to mainstream this conversation so that we could have more problem solvers in the Philippines, right? So I feel like that is, going back to my first statement, beauty will save the world. That is how we could really mainstream design and more people actively sharing their voices, sharing their creativity, their hand into problem solving and designing. So I'm hopeful about that.
Amina, for you, what is the state of Philippine design? What will excite you in the next few years?
Right now, what I am really looking forward to and quite curious about is what is going to come. What are the new design solutions? What are the new products? What are the new spaces that will come out in the coming years? Because I actually see that the past 2 years of the pandemic, being in lockdown, of course there was the negative side, but in a way that isolation, it really became an opportunity for introspection for a lot of people. It also became an opportunity for localizing resources, raw materials, technology. And somehow, the lack of travel, the non-exposure to other countries and other cultures somehow really made us look into the Philippines, look into our neighbors. And I'm so curious to see what we can produce, that breed of designers that have gone through this and hopefully have opened their eyes and saw new perspectives because of that. Because of the isolation, because of the non-exposure to the rest of the world. I want to see also that there is an opportunity there. There is an opportunity in terms of going back again to our identity.
That truly is an exciting prospect, that this rediscovery. Yeah. And of course, I reserved the last manifesto declaration on the State of Philippine Design to Rhea. What's in store for us? Where is Philippine Design for you right now?
I guess it's that openness to just beyond the form of design, but again, it's really about experiences and really even to a certain extent addressing social issues. Again, the pandemic really opened up people's perception of, not just on a formative expression of design, but it's really how can we make things better? How can we improve the lives of people?
Yeah.
So that one is really exciting for me because then the conversation really just becomes it's not just about form. Then it's something that's more, that also touches on the substantive quality of life. I guess first designers, it's really about improving life. I mean, when humans started to build tools, it's really to manage the environment that was around them. Yeah, so that pause kind of really made us, understand, really understood the power that we have as designers, as social innovators, to really use that power into something that would impact more people. And for me, that's exciting when, when they're all just starting to, to grow and influence more and more. And that movement for me is very exciting.
Yeah, and, empowerment of the designer and the creatives.
And maybe just to add, what I really also hope happened in the past 2 years is that this also gave most of us a certain level of boldness and courage to not look at what are other people doing and sort of be more brave and in understanding, in creating their own decisions and not being fed by the outside world, not being fed by what other countries are doing, what the media says, and really have a true opinion and a true, really fact find on their own and form their own points of view. And that's what I'm really hoping. That's what's happening.
That's really something to look forward to. It's going to be an exciting journey for designers already. Some sectors, creative sectors, have a very short way to go. Some others, like ours, will have a long way to go in democratizing that activity of design. And it's essentially like what you said, infecting the public with this good news of good design and the good design that they deserve. Because that's the only time that this tricycle driver will have the boldness and the confidence to say, I deserve a blue light post because it's beautiful for me, it's proper, it's efficient for me, and I have a reason and a purpose why I want it that way. And that thing, I think, will only happen when we decentralize the exercise of design.
We are all in agreement that design is transformative, right? So we need that. Maybe it's not a long table, a really long table, but a big round table. So we are on, equal footing. to have more people in that conversation, because we need a tipping point, right? So maybe the plan is, I'm a problem solving already. Maybe the plan is, how do we actually democratize the tools of design, the thinking behind design, the process of design? Yeah.
Well, on that question that I will refuse to answer right now, because I'd like the public to really form please do form your own opinions on that final question. How do we help us democratize this industry and craft of creatives and design? Thank you once again, Amina, Royal, Abby, and Rhea for joining us today. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. The State of Philippine Design Roundtable will be available on demand on the Design Center's official Facebook and YouTube accounts. Once again, on behalf of the Design Week team, I would like to thank our partners, the Department of Trade and Industry, our co-presenters, Tourism Promotions Board, First United Building, Hub Make Lab, our program partners, our design mentors, our design partner, our live stream partner, our media partners, and our government partner. We value your feedback. Please take time to let us know what you thought of this roundtable by scanning the QR code and completing the feedback form. We have so much more in store for you in the coming days. For the updates on all things Design Week, head over to our social media accounts, DTI Design Center of the Philippines on Facebook and at DTI.DesignCenterPH on Instagram. Thank you once again to our Design Week community, and we hope you can join us for the rest of the week for Design Week Philippines 2022.
Matute.